evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Wow, look at all the beautiful people on here. Ms. Caroline Baker, thank you for joining us. Mr. Chris McDowell, thank you. Hector, so much good. Thanks for coming on the call. Mr. Marvin Carter, Regional Director, thank you from Fresno. Mr. Tommy Graham in Okinawa, thank you so much from Okinawa. Miss Joyce Brewer, good seeing you on the call. And Miss Walker, thank you so much. Mr. Payon in Japan, thank you so much for joining. Miss Natalie in Las Vegas, thank you so much. Miss Korhara in Japan, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, always on the call. Mr. Edmund Smith, thank you so much. Mr. Winston Herbert, thank you. Miss Pat Robinson out there in Oakland, California, IA. And Miss Sage, thank you so much. Mr. David Hershaw, thank you for joining us as well. Mr. Bill Howard, what happened there? What happened there? What happened there? Mr. Tim Karad up in Minnesota. Man, what a blessing you were yesterday with what you said. My God, that was amazing. Miss Lisa, thank you for joining us. Queen B from New York City, thank you for joining. Miss Dominic Young, our school teacher up in Nashville, Tennessee. And the great Miss Marcia Carter there in Fresno, California, IA. And if I think I saw Miss Collins jump on here, did I see her on here? Yeah, there we go. Miss Diane Collins in Australia, mate, down under. What did those shrimp on the bobby, mate? Thanks for joining the call. So as you can tell, we have a great international call. Hey, tonight's training, and first of all, welcome to August 1st, August 1st. And if I can, a regional director, Miss Natasha Ismail. Matter of fact, I want her to take a moment, if she has it, and talk about the bonus for this month. I just put her on the spot. I didn't call her prior to that, but I've been kind of super swamped today. Today is a really busy day today, but I want her to maybe get the promotion up real quick and maybe share it with us about the promotion, or Mr. Bree Clemens, before we have our special guest speaker on. This young man did a fantastic job yesterday. Man, he blessed I don't know about y'all, but I got a blessing out of yesterday. Knocked my socks off. It was such a blessing. He said something that was so profound. My son came out, I was sharing it with him, and I just wanted to kind of iterate. He says, people are attracted to things that are rare. Wow. I'll say it again. People are always attracted to things that are rare. And I was, you know what, it's amazing. I was listening to a guy talk a couple days prior to that. And who wants to go to average house, have an average dinner, average bottle of wine? Everybody wants something that's different, that's nice, that's above and beyond the call of duty, which is amazing. So I want to thank you for that. You know, a couple people never heard him on our call that texted me yesterday afternoon. It's like, wow, whoops. And I want him to just to share. Do we have the promotions, Miss Ismail? Do you have the promotions at all?
Yes, so I have one of the main ones, and it's for all of the new IBOs, the Fast Start bonus, and new IBOs who start between August 1st and 31st and have personally acquired customers totaling at least 5 services and 10 points in 30 days can earn an additional $300 bonus when their downline acquires totaling 30 points or more in the same 30-day time frame. So personal, 5 services, 10 points, and total 30 points of your team. That's an additional $300 bonus.
Wow, that is a great bonus. So go out and get 5 services, $300, or 30 services in your organization, $300. That is powerful. Wow. Okay, everybody. I think if there's a display right there. New IBOs Fast Start bonus. New IBOs start date of August 1 through the 30th have personally acquired customers totaling at least 5 services and 10 points in 30 days can earn an additional, I like that word additional, that means more, $300 bonus when your downline IBOs acquire a customer totaling 30 points or more during the same 30-day time frame. So starting today to the end of August, there's $300 for the person to go out and get 5 services and 10 points. And there's also $300 bonus for the organization for your downline. Thank you so much, Ms. Ismail. I know you were on top of it. Can we give that beautiful lady a hand for just stepping up to the plate. That's what leaders do, step up to the plate when the time of need. Well, listen, I want to talk about this young man, our guest speaker. He blessed us yesterday. And while he was talking, I just got a blessing, like, you know what, have him come back do a leadership for you, Mr. Thomas, because I think we could just do more. So, and he will be back with us on the 18th of this month of August. Let's see, I've already asked him to come back. Is it 18th? Yes, on August 18th, with this Tuesday. So mark your schedule. Also, let me give you all, some of you don't know who he is, but he lives in Houston, Texas. He was on our call yesterday. He just told us he's just turned 56, he's a business owner. He's been an entrepreneur most of his life, worked in corporate America. He's been married 34 years. So therefore, we can probably get a lot of marriage counseling from us as well. Woo. He's a great, and he said something a couple weeks ago, and he said something so profound. He says, it's a great time to be an ACN right now. And then he said something he talked about yesterday as well, and I brought it to his attention, is always be reinventing yourself, especially in today's climate. And he says, the third thing he said was very powerful, is faith. Faith is the key. And the fourth thing he said that was pretty powerful that I wrote in my notes, the pain of change, the pain of change. And he talked about that when he came on with us. Oh my God, hold on, let me look at my notes. When he came on and talked, what day was that? When he came on and talked May 12th, he talked about that. And he also talked about the airplane with no rear view mirrors. And boy, that blessed my socks off to know him. So without further ado, my dear friend from Houston, Texas, he's also a businessman, also an ACN. He's also a mentor to a lot of young people, and he's a modern day thought leader. And I want you guys to get this and get your notepads out, your journals, your eyebrow pencils, whatever you got to write on, but get it ready, I don't know, whatever it is. Without further ado, my dear friend from Houston, Texas, Mr. Dwight Williams. Mr. Dwight Williams, let's give him a hand, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody today?
Good.
Well, Mr. Thomas, I'm gonna just say thank you first for giving us this opportunity. But before I get started, I'm gonna tell you guys, I mean, it's an honor and a privilege for me to even be doing this, but because I should be listening to him instead of talking, actually, to be honest with you. I'll be calling him and pulling on him in the after hours, so he can get ready for that. But that's fine. I'm a big talk. Because you can talk to him about everything. Matter of fact, me and you do need to talk about gold and, gold particularly. So brace yourself, be ready for that, because I need to be talking about that.
We'll talk, and you guys do too. I've got time. Call me after we're done here. I've got time.
Okay, good. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I really am. For those of you who may not know my name, I'm Dwight Williams. I'm a business owner based in Houston, Texas, and I'm a 25-year-old, 56-year-old. So, so I'm listed half my real age. So I'm just letting you know that, get that out of the way. I love being here and I love doing this, and I love for us to talk. One of the nice things about communicating with people is I instead of talks or just having a talk, I like to have a conversation. So I really like questions, and because it allows us to communicate. And there are no incorrect or bad questions. They're just questions. And I guess the nicest thing, and this is the benefit that you all have with Mr. Thomas, is when an individual has years of experience, they can flow with questions. When people don't have as much experience, well, they try to avoid questions. Lectures are more apt in those moments. So that's why I love to surround. So that's why you make your circle of influence, your mastermind groups, as much as possible, get people who have actually have more than just, you want to have the academics, the knowledge as well, but definitely the experience, because then you can freely ask questions. And when a person has been there in 3 and 4 different ways, they know they can answer those questions. And you can tell the ones that are really relaxed to answer. So when I call Mr. Thomas and talk to him about him in the domain and gold coins, he's going to know exactly what to tell me. He's going to be able to tell me what year to buy, how to buy, where to buy, what exchanges to buy. he'll know that. And that's the nice thing about having people in your network that can really help you. So tonight is about leadership. I don't know, for those of you who were on calls yesterday, you heard me mention a group of a team of people that I spend time with, and if I were to say leadership right now, and any of them were on this call, I could mute it. They tell you exactly what leadership means to definitely to me. And so before I just go straight there, because it'll be quite a little shocking. So let's work our way there. If I were to ask you in a minimal amount of words, what's your definition of leadership? What would that be? Because when you begin to define leadership, you really have to talk about, you define leadership on the backdrop of where we are right now. Do we have a lot of leaders now? And I would venture to say we don't have a lot of leaders right now. Leadership is a thing that is rare. So people are seeking leaders and mentors right now. Why? Because it's so difficult to find. There was a day when most households had leaders in them. They were the parents, were the leaders. Now you've watched over several decades that has kind of broken down. And so when it's like anything, it's even like this industry, network marketing, once your core breaks down, it begins to infect all of the layers from that point. And so the state that we see ourselves in our communities is a product of the breaking down of the smallest component, which is our families. And so, and it's because John Maxwell says everything hangs on leadership. Leadership is the key to everything. And so if you see a situation or a system or a circumstance or a community or something that is struggling or faltering, it's because there is a breakdown in leadership in that system. So if the lack of leadership is the product of the challenges we face, then actual leadership is probably the solution then. Inference, we infer that's true. So if that is the case, then what is leadership? And so we then have to look at examples of leadership that we have. And I always go to the best leader the world has ever known. And the world has known many great leaders. Gandhi was a great leader. Churchill was a great leader. We've had many Martin Luther King. We've had great leaders. I study history, and history is one of the things I love. And so one of the things you call me nuts because but I love listening to the speeches that these guys give. And I just like Churchill's. If you ever have a chance, just put a Churchill speech on, just listen to it, and you think to yourself, how does a person come to a place to say these things? So what causes somebody to rise to that place? And so we begin to, we good? We begin to understand. So so I look to my favorite character, which is Jesus Christ. And so he's the greatest. If you look at the results, he's created the greatest institution that the planet has ever known. And I had one guy said, I work for his business myself right now. I'm in his network. So and so you look at the characteristics of his leadership. You can hear me? Oh, you are muted.
You're good.
Okay, you can hear me now? Okay, good. No, I was saying my career started just a few years ago. I was 19 years old, only 5 or 10 years ago. Well, you know, if I'm 25, it could only be 6 years. But at 19 years old, I started working for a Fortune 500 company, and was blessed to find myself working for a vice president. And I was a kid out the hood, and I don't say that to make that a big deal. I just was. That's where I grew up, and it's neither here nor there about it. But I'll tell you this: I entered corporate America with no leadership skills. One of the first tasks I was given was to hire some assistants, a worker to come work for me. And the person I hired was a guy that was my friend at the time. And I remember one night, I don't know if you've heard this story. I told this story once before. I remember one night he and I were working at 6, 7 o'clock at night, because I was a workaholic. I loved what I did, found a gift, and I was driving. And we were working late one night, and I told him to do something, and he didn't do it. And I didn't understand writing things up and reprimanding him or demoting him, or I just started fighting with him. I said, yeah, you're gonna do it tonight. We just went to fist fight. I was 19 years old. This was the extent of my leadership. This was leadership for me. You don't do what I tell you to do, I'll just make you do it. and so I realized development, but the truth is the guy I worked for, he didn't go to fist fighting, but he used intimidation as his management style. I tell you this story because I became a product of his leadership. And so my next company was a company named Software Integration. It was a really successful company. I started it at 20. My wife and I started that business around 25 years old, 25. And I remember opening my first office. I put my office at the front of the office so I could hear everybody come in the door. Why? That's what he had taught me to do. He taught me to track and watch everything. And so when a person came in 1 minute late, you were coming in my office, I need to talk to you. Because that's what leadership was for me. Leadership was controlling everything for me. And so all I knew was, if I'm gonna get, and I got results, I'm gonna tell you, I got production out of what we were doing. And it does, it produces results, it does. But I'm gonna tell you something, in the long run, things that you put in jars and you lock them down, they don't grow. They may grow for a period, but they'll eventually die. So I remember our founder, Mr. Greg Provenzano, he gave one of his key presentations, and I'll never forget it. He made a statement: you can either have one of two things. You can have either control or you can have growth. But you can't have both. You've got to pick one. And to have growth, you cannot have control. And so, but it is a tendency of us as humans to always want to control, because we believe we know best. And so therefore, if we can just make them do what we need them to do, then we can get the results that we need. Whereas Mr. Provenzano was challenging us to say, no. Don't make them do what you want them to do. Present them with the opportunity and help them to see how it will help them do what they need to do. And so I began to think about how that fits into everything else we do. And so that will take us on the journey. I wish we were in a room where we could actually dialogue, but that's fine. But at any time, you can unmute and make a comment or statement. But I study, and I told you those stories because the journey of leadership for me changed drastically. I went from being that guy, and if I told you all the lessons, and Mr. Thomas would not be surprised by any of these lessons. Let me tell you guys, my own brother, I trained and developed, and when I needed him most, he quit me. he quit the company. I remember being on a phone call with a group of people that I had personally trained and mentored and developed. And they had gone from being people that would have been average to be some of the highest paid in the 90s. These people were at the top. And when my company needed that team of people the most, they all quit. Every single one down to the last one. And, but I thank God that I always had the ability to have insight, and I always looked inside. I never said they betrayed me, they cheated me. No, no, no. What did I do wrong? What do I need to understand? What do I not know that is producing these results? And I always I was always introspective, and I looked inside, discovered what I had done wrong. I had brought a lot of emotion. Notice I said, I had hired and developed all these people. I had hired my own brother, all of that's emotional. It's business when it's business, and it's emotional. And what that taught me how to do was to separate those two things. And in each one of these steps along that journey made me a better leader. Now, why am I saying that? I think leadership is more about us than it is about anybody else. So if I were to ask you a question, and I know this is an obvious question, who is the number one person that you need to lead? Most people know that answer, yourself. Who else do you need to lead? Nobody. That's the tricky part in leadership. The only person that you can lead is yourself. Now, you'll ask me, wait a minute, I'm lost. I don't quite understand. What are you trying to say? Well, the truth is, God gave us dominion over all of the earth. There's only one thing he didn't give us dominion over. It was another person. So you cannot control anybody else. The only person that you can control, that you will struggle to control the most. Now watch that. That's the tricky piece. You will struggle to control yourself more than anybody else. But the person who can discipline themselves is the one that will become the greatest leader. Am I doing something wrong? Is it off? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm just making sure. All right, good. The person that you will have to master is you. The key to becoming a great leader is to be able to lead yourself. Now, Mr. Thomas is telling a tremendous truth when he says about 33 years of marriage. He is absolutely right. I have a partner, and my partner and I laugh about this all the time. And I'm gonna take the pressure off of couples. The Apostle Paul wrote three quarters of the letters of the epistles of the New Testament. He wrote the rules for marriage, and then at the end made the decision. I don't think I'm going to do that one. After reading the rules, they're a little bit strict. I'm going to bow out of that one. And I'm being facetious, and I'm really teasing. But the point is, the greatest point of leadership is marriage. It's because think about it, they know everything about you. They know everything about you. And so they get to see your leadership. And then when I say leadership, once again, every time I say that word leadership, I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about you. They get to see every way you are incapable of leading yourself. So I always ask young men that I mentor and that have great leaders and mentors in their lives, and I say, you love that, you love T.D. Jakes, don't you? Oh, I just love, he's incredible. You love Joel Osteen. Oh yeah, I said, but what is greatness? Who's great? Joel Osteen, who leads 6,000 people in a congregation, or a father who comes home every single day? He's got 2 kids and a wife. They love and they respect him. They know everything about him. Which one of those is great? Not to diminish Joel's greatness, because he may be a father with children and parents, and that would make him great. But the truth is, if that person that is great leads a congregation of people who really don't know him, that's easy. compared to somebody that knows everything about you. And as we build these businesses that we're building, the networks that you're building, those people will see you. I remember the young man that recruited me into the business. And I remember him talking to me. He said, Dwight, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And I called, he finally made me, and I challenged him. I says, let me ask you a question. When she calls you at 4 o'clock in the morning and says her son is in trouble and she needs help, what are you going to do? He says, well, that's not my responsibility. No. That's not what she understood when you said, when you get in the business, I'm going to change your life. For her, that's changing her life. She finally found somebody that's going to be there when she has a need or when he has a need. And when they see us, that's what they see us as leaders. And so when he said that, and I challenged him, you need to think, because that's what you're doing as a leader. So you're asking me to just jump into this business and just start it and to just be after the money and to get rich. That's not what this is. If you're going to build and be successful in building this business, it's about relationships. And it's about, they're going to know things about you that in many cases, you're not going to want to let them know. Mr. Thomas, you know things about Mr. Thomas that most people are not going to want you to know about them, but it doesn't really matter. He's exposed himself. He's with you on Fridays, with you on Saturdays. He's letting you into his life. Most people don't want that because they want their privacy in a lot of cases, because that allows them to protect the things that they don't want you to see. But leadership is about transparency, if anything. So as you desire to lead people more and more, it's going to be about you being able to be more and more transparent to those people. And that means you're going to have to be, they're going to see what that type of a leader you really are as you bring them closer to you. So I told you earlier that the group of guys that if they were on here, every single one of them would know what the answer is to what is leadership. And I've had this conversation with every single one of them. Leadership is death. That's what leadership is. Now, I told you it would probably be a little shocking at first when I first said that. But if you take any time, and I always do it, my daughter is a doctor. She and I, my family knows that to debate. We debate everything. And so if you believe something in my family, you better be able to defend it, because when we come for you and we're going to be challenged, you can't say, well, that's just what I think. No. You better have a way to defend what you're saying. And so she became a doctor, and now she pulls out, well, Dad, there's a report number such as, I'm like, now you're cheating. You're cheating now. Now, before you do that, I'm going to look this report up and I'm going to read it before. No, I'm just teasing. But that's what we do. And I say that because I know that seems like a strong term, but it is the truth. What I mean by that, if you're going to build any relationship, it's going to be about sacrifice. It's not going to be about satisfying. Leadership is selfless. It's not selfish. And most people, when they hear the word selfish, they think it's an emotionally bad word. It's not. All selfish means is that my interest reigns supreme. But if you're going to build something that requires other people to participate, then your interest can no longer reign supreme. You now have to consider other people's interests. Otherwise, you need to plan on, putting in 30,000 points on your own. So I don't know. You can probably get RVP, but I don't know if you're going to get SEP. And it's the truth. You can't build anything of significance by yourself. You just can't. And so leadership is really about sacrifice. And that's what it boils down to. And that's in everything you do. If you're going to have a relationship with a friend, you're going to make a decision that I'm willing to tolerate certain things from this individual because I value the friendship. If you're going to build a business, I'm going to be willing to deal with the challenges that I'm going to face in this business for the results that I see. that I desire. If I'm going to build a marriage, I'm going to be willing to put some of the things aside and die to my independence to now be a part of a unit. Anytime you begin to come together with people, it's going to require sacrifice. Now, leadership, though, takes it a step further. So for me to be in a relationship is one thing, but for me to be the leader requires me to die. Why? Because see, leadership, once again, it's not about the people I'm leading. And so I always have this visual in my mind of what people think leadership is. If you line up a group of people and you put them in line, most leaders think that everybody is facing this way and the leader is doing this, and he's turning around to the team telling them what to do. That is not leadership. Because I assure you, if that is the posture we take, that team is not going anywhere. Because how can you go forward when the leader's turning around backwards telling the team where to go? So, and so what I'm telling you may sound good, and it may even sound comical, but find yourself in that place, and it is not simple to do. And so how many men have found themselves in situations where they're saying, how do I lead this family? They just won't follow. No. You just have to keep moving. You can't turn around and look for them to follow. I say this, and I say it carefully. Most people say a leader is defined by who's following him. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think a leader is defined by him having the ability to follow himself. Because if you can act, the thing most people cannot do is what they say they believe. Most people say they believe things, but they cannot do the things they say they believe. So often things sound good that we believe, but we often can't do those things. Now, I'm going to tell you why. When I look through history at the greatest leaders, who I believe are the greatest leaders, there's a reason I picked Christ. Now, of course, there's an obvious reason, because everybody says Christ is the greatest leader ever because of the results. And I told you I was part of his network. But the truth is, the Bible says he led 12 men. But if you know their history, all 12 of those men died for him. Did you know that? Now, one of them didn't die, but he went to his death. He just didn't die because it wasn't his time, and that was John. He was thrown in a vat of boiling oil, and the Bible says that not one hair on his head was singed because he had something else he had to do. But he went to his death. But the other 11, they were murdered in horrendous ways. The story that really Fox's Book of Martyrs talks about Peter. And here's the crazy thing about Peter. Minutes before he was crucified upside down, he had just watched his wife be crucified. She was crucified as well, right before he was, upside down. Now, I'm not trying to preach, but what I am trying to say is look at leadership at its best. He died for them. Every single one of them died for him. So leadership can't be anything else but selflessness. Selflessness, translation, sacrifice. Now, I'm not trying to kill the call. I'm not trying to make us get all, I'm not. What I'm trying to help you understand, you can build a massive network of people, but it's got to be about them, not you. And that's the truth. You don't need me to tell you this. You have it exemplified right before you with Mr. Thomas. He doesn't, and I know we say this and like you don't deserve it because he believes you do deserve it. That's why he's doing it. But the truth is, he really doesn't have to do it. That's the part I need you to see. He's making a choice to do this. and so it's more than about him. You guys, I hope every single one of you experience this. When the only thing that will satisfy you is watching another person win. When you experience that, then you'll understand what he's doing. You'll sacrifice anything. Fridays and Saturdays don't mean that much. They're not that important. Me getting an SVP pin is, you'll watch Mr. Thomas. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I've never missed an international since I got in this business in 2015. This is leadership, am I right? So everybody in here is leaders. I went to 2 internationals before I even got in the business. So, and it is the international that inspired me so. And one of the gentlemen that really inspired me, it took me a while to figure out, because I've been paying attention for all that period of time, but I'm slow. I'm not as fast as most people. But I did eventually catch it. Mr. Thomas is in every promotion line. That's the craziest thing to me. And every one of the people that I've talked to in these promotions say, he's been in my room helping me build. And he had no people in that room. He had no benefit. And I had a few guys say, I don't even know why he showed up. He showed up, but when he showed up, we put him on the stage and he just, that's leadership. Leadership is selfless. It's not selfish. And it is the key to achieving anything of greatness in life. I said earlier, I study history. I try to study some of the greatest people. What about a man causes 12 men to be willing to die? Peter so much so says, I'm not even worthy to die like him. Do me upside down. So who am I going to study? That's what I'm going to study. And so most people say, Dwight, that's crazy, man. Most of the young people that I talk to, they say, I'm a work in progress, man. I'm not Jesus. When I talk to them about selfishness, selflessness, and death, and all, they're like, hey, man, I want to be great, but not that great. But the truth is, I mean, wouldn't it be fascinating to, and that's what I'm saying. I believe that most people don't build these massive organizations because they have limits on how selfless they will be. And when your selfless limit is the thing that restricts the size of your organization. People are looking for leadership, but leadership is selflessness. And so the reason it is so rare, very few people can rise to that place. When you find somebody though, that does and can, or if you can be that person, it may not make any sense up front. You may not be able to see. Oh, and that's the other thing. Seeing is not important. The principles are what they are and they work, whether you can understand them or not. Because if you can understand them, then there's no need for faith. Faith is to believe in these principles, whether you understand them or not. But believe you me, these principles, they are real and they work. I'm telling you. See, the benefit you guys have is you got a man right in front of you that's living it every day. He's demonstrating it every day. And you see it being exemplified in front of you. And so you kind of have like a cheat sheet. You got an example of it, but I didn't have that. Matter of fact, other than my parents, everything I saw in corporate America the first 7 years was selfish. It was ambition and drive and sacrifice. I remember my first DISC assessment, DISC. I don't know how many of you are familiar with DISC. My first DISC assessment, the lady told me, she says, man, you are a massive D. And I'm like, I didn't even know what she meant, but D is dominant. She says, you got dead bodies everywhere. I didn't want to believe at that point that was true. But when I looked back over my corporate career, I wouldn't say that I killed anybody, but if you got in front of me, I would go over, under, or around you. But nothing was going to stop me from getting to where I was going. I would try not to go through you to try and avoid that. But if I had to, I would do whatever I had to do to get where I was trying to go. When I look back at that, that's not the guy I wanted to be, because I didn't believe it was the only path. And I also believe there were better paths. And I began to discover individuals that began to show me different ways. But I was a kid. I was shaped by guys that, my first boss drove a Rolls Royce and a drop top Mercedes in the 80s. And he had a big afro and he had a, a pitchfork in his back pocket. But he was rich beyond measure. He's wealthy. And so I'm a kid, I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I'll be learning. But I decided I wanted to be a different guy. Once I discovered that you could actually be successful doing other things. And so doing it other ways, I changed the person I became. And I began to experience even greater success after that. I could tell you stories about him to show you that that path that he took doesn't end in a good place. Even as successful as he had become, there's a consequence for that way of management. It is. So any questions, any thoughts, comments? Chats? Let me see. So let me see. Am I seeing them all? Okay, good.
Tim, you had a question? I think Tim had a question up in Tim Kernard up in Minnesota.
All right, Tim.
I'm muted. There we go.
I can hear you now.
How are you today?
I'm well, and you?
Conquering the world, sir.
Good.
So how does one die to self and still establish proper boundaries so that you have time to grow yourself, lead yourself, but still serve? And so you don't fall back on other responsibilities. Like I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I have responsibilities at the church, I have a job. How do I lead and still do my responsibilities in a proper way?
Interesting. You know, that question brings up brings up a moment. I have a lot of stories, so I'll just tell you the stories. One of my clients was Fujitsu Amdahl in the Bay Area. So I had a project there for Y2K, year 2000. I was there in 1998 or 99, and then I was there up until 2000. And let me say this, I had one employee that I paid, what did I pay him? $75,000 or $90,000, something like that. And so it was me and one employee, and we did 990 some thousand that year. And so you can only imagine the number. And so that project was paying us a lot of money. And I remember I got one of the worst calls that I could possibly have gotten in my life. My wife called and she said, "Dwight, I know you're down there and I know you're doing what you're doing, but your son is growing up and you're missing it." You notice I said that was one of the worst calls because I was gonna have to pick between quitting that job and going back home, and I was making a literal fortune. You hear me? And she said, "But you're missing your son's growth." So I'm gonna tell you exactly what I did. I immediately got on my knees and prayed. That's what I prayed. And you know, when we do that kind of stuff, what we want God to do is to just say what we want him to say. If he don't say it, we just gonna say he did. So God said I should stay. That's what we wanted. But I knew very clear that I got up because I knew that, hey, you know, God never told me to make a lot of money. He told me to take care of my family. And it was a hard thing. And I can't tell you how hard it was, because when I went to her to resign, she was French. The project had people from we had French, we had programmers from India, we had programmers from Asia. So, and then the base staff was, but the company I was running the project was a French company. And so the lady at first, I'm gonna tell you a tricky story. I wasn't on the project. The guy that I'd hired was the project manager. I placed him there. He was in an office there, and he was like her assistant. And so they needed help, and he called me one day and he said, "Hey, Dwight, they may be able to use your services. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to come down and work." And so when I came down, they put me in a cubicle. And so every Friday he would give me his timesheet. I'd fill in his timesheet, enter it, sign it, and I'd hand it to him to turn in to her. He would turn in my timesheet and his timesheet, and then he would turn it into her. She didn't know that I owned the company. And so, and I told him, don't you ever tell her that I own the company. She eventually said, who is Innovasoft? I said, yeah, that's a company I work for. And she eventually found out that I owned the company. The reason this came about is because there was a need popping up, and she wanted to extend me. She was gonna let me go, but something happened. There was a lot happened, but she wanted to extend it, and she extended it. And at that point, she found out. She says, "You want an office?" Or I said, "Nope, cubicle's good with me. Nobody else needs to know anything else. Let me stay in the office. I'll stay in the cubicle. Let's get the work done and keep the bills flowing." And we went to work. My wife called me, and I went to her, and I told her, I says, "Hey, I gotta go." She made me another offer, a massive offer. See, temptation is a crazy thing. And, but I decided to leave. And I didn't know where I was gonna go. I didn't have a plan beyond that. That was a massive contract, and that contract was supposed to have lasted another year or two. And so when my wife called and I made the decision, I left. And went home with no plan. But I will tell you, Tim, it's not about the money, but the money is more the confirmation. I made more money the next year than I made prior to that. I can't tell you where, I can't tell you why. I just did. So when you live experiences like that, they build your faith. So I don't let circumstances dictate or govern the decisions I make in life. So if I know the right thing for me to do is to take care of my family, I'm not going to let anything else affect that. If he can't take care of his job, then why am I following him? And thus far, he has never missed. So, any other questions?
Wow.
Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
No, I said, wow, that was amazing. I was gonna say the same thing. Anybody else have a question for Mr. Dwight Williams? Mark the calendars. Tuesday, August 18th. He will be back with us again. Got one more question. One more question if anybody has it.
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Joyce Brewer.
Okay. So far, and what I'm hearing is to be an effective leader, one must have that selflessness characteristic in them. How do you keep self out of the equation of destroying that? Because I know that many people that I have seen in leadership positions, even for myself in my lifetime, you get that ego gets in the way. You know, if you see successes, you start getting puffed up, you know. So now the selflessness kind of just walks away. And either, you know, you can extend your leadership and keep your people around you and you grow, or they just like, oh, well, this person is this, that. So how do you get that? How do you keep that balance, or how do you keep that other person out of the way?
Yeah. And that is a great question. And because it's not an easy thing. So that question you're asking is very difficult to do. And that's probably the challenge, is how do you heal you to, and so people who know me know I always do this. You have to get out of here and you have to move into here.
That's right.
If you ask Mr. Thomas why he does it, he can't tell you from here why he does it. He just knows it's the right thing to do. You just do, because when you've been in business as long as he has and experienced the things, you've seen it done good and you've seen it done not good. And so you know the things that produced the right results and the things that did not. And so eventually you begin to figure out it's the things where people did things they did with the right heart that produced the right results, and the things where they were in their heads and they were thinking about what they're doing and planning, and that actually in most cases didn't produce the results they were looking for. How do I kill me? I have to make a decision. Is the relationship with my friend important enough for me to put my own ego and all that aside? Dwight, if it is not, you're gonna be alone. So you got to decide, Dwight. You got to pick. Do you want to have this friend, or do you want to be by yourself? Dwight, I know your wife she's not. You're not happy with her, and you got this friend that you're talking to, and she could possibly make you happy. But I know I got my kids, and I know I got that. But man, I need to be happy. Well, Dwight, understand that the cost is you will never be able to tell your son anything. You will never be able to have the confidence of your daughter. You can kiss those things goodbye, and your wife will never trust you again. Is it worth that? And so you have to choose. You have to always be thinking, what are my choices? Who am I? Who do I want to be? I ask my son all the time, son, forget your dad. I've done my part. I've connected you to God. That was my job. Now you have to decide the person you want to be. And I'm not going to dictate that to you. Whoever you're going to be, you're going to choose. But here's what I am going to do to you. Anytime you choose to be somebody, you come to me and tell me that you're somebody else, I'm going to tell you, you are not that person. I'm going to make sure you know, young man, this is who you are because these were the choices that you made. So don't lie to yourself and say you're something that you chose not to be. And so, Joyce, if you say, I want to be a leader, then what are you willing to sacrifice to be that leader? Because it's not free. If it were free, everybody'd be doing it. The reason everybody's not doing it because they're not willing to pay the cost to do it. And so, though that is the question, and that's in every situation, in every relationship, in building a business, in building a team, in building a family, in building anything. It's what am I willing to become to build that? So, did that answer your question? It did? Good.
You know what? I'm gonna jump in there for a second. I think Greg Parmesan say, what are you willing to give up to go up? I'll say it again. Greg Parmesan always says that. What are you willing to give up to go up? And to add on to the same thought, Miss Brewer, is staying humble. Is staying humble. And I've always said this. You guys probably heard me say this on zillions of calls. My biggest prayer for every one of you, I've always said this, is to stay, as you start making money, stay humble. As you start making money, stay grounded, stay humble. See, what happens is, like Mr. Dwight Williams said, you have a choice. You let the ego rise, or you got to kill the ego. And ego, E-G-O, stands for edging God out. Mm-hmm. Once you edge God out, then your ego starts to flow, and you start thinking you're all that in the bag of chips. That's why you have to not edge God out by staying humble, by staying passive, by staying submissive, by letting others lead, let others get the credit, and stay in the back of it. See, that's like your child graduating. You're happy that person did something because you invested in that person, but you got to stay humble. There's two sides to it: ego or staying humble. EGO, edging God out. Every time I see somebody with a big ego, God's nowhere in it. Staying humble is so important. And like I've said to people, my biggest prayer when you guys start making gangster good money, stay humble.
Stay humble.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
No. And I want to be careful because it can sound like we're getting deep because we're using biblical references, but that's the only thing I have. I've learned to rely on that, and I don't apologize for it. And I'm not to offend anybody, I promise you, but I don't, because it works. It has worked for me, and it has never missed. And so people talk about principles from people, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Every principle that I've studied, and I've read a lot of books. I try my best to read 26 to 52 books a year. And I've read a lot of books. And when I find a principle that's good, it's based on something I find biblically.
Amen. I will second that one. That everyone comes out of there. It's just said different, but it comes out of that little black book. BIBLE. Basic instructions before leaving Earth.
So somebody asked, how has your decision affected my son today? When I came, I began to travel again later on. My son grew up and I started traveling. And my wife has always been the thing that has always kept me balanced. And I remember coming home one day and my son he's a gangster because he's very much like his dad. He's ambitious and he's aggressive. And so I was challenged with him, and he's strong-willed. But I will tell you, the foundation that I gave him in his faith is the thing that's kept him grounded. And so right now, he and I are, if you were to talk to him, he would say that my father is the one that saved my life. Because he was gonna, but if my wife encourage is not a strong enough word. It's a little bit more than encouragement. But it's because of her I came back. When I did come back, he'll tell you, my dad is the reason that my fitness, my dad is the reason my focus, my responsibility. But that's leadership. That's my job. That's what I was supposed to do. So I haven't done anything special. But that's the effect it's had, to have somebody to lead, and for him to be able to see a person leadership. I never lied to him. So when I failed, I told him I was a failure. Because that's leadership. Leadership is honest. And even like Mr. Thomas said, when we succeeded, we stayed humble. We didn't brag, and he was able to see that, and it began to shape the person he became. So today, Mr. Thomas has met my son. My son is an ACN. He wrapped up his school a few months ago. He just graduated. And now he's making a decision where he's gonna go in his career. So, but it requires, so now, am I satisfied? Am I proud of it? Of course I am. But it had a cost. I'm telling you. And when I tell you it had a cost, it was not a cheap cost. It cost a lot, dealing with a young man that was in his teens and trying to find him and define him.
Uh-oh, did we lose him?
I think he froze.
Okay. He's frozen. Wow. Well, I tell you what, while we're waiting for him to come back on, tomorrow night, our one and only Miss Natasha Ismail is doing a training tomorrow night at 6:00 p.m. And she's going to be talking about have scripts on how to prospect. So I talked about it on, wow, it just led right into her conversation on tomorrow night. And we're so excited about having her when I talked on Thursday, but tomorrow night at 6:00 p.m., she's going to be having scripts and training. Our training is going to be on scripts. She's going to give you scripts, what to say, how to say things tomorrow night at 6. So please be aware of that and get your downline on these calls. You know, as being, knowing Mr. Williams as I do, being very unselfish and being, sacrificing what he gave up. And that's what we're doing, sacrificing. Some of you are sacrificing time away from your family to build your ACN business. Because you don't see the fruits of your labor, don't think it's in vain. He's coming back in right now, Mr. Ismail. Don't think it's in vain. You got to keep going until you get where you want to go. And don't let nothing stop you. And Mr. Williams talking about Winston Churchill. One of my favorite quotes is what Winston Churchill said. And I say it from the stage when I go on the stage. Never, never, ever quit. And when I heard that, that just blessed my socks off. And I adopt that same slogan to this day. So don't ever quit. Don't ever quit till you get where you want to go. All right, Mr. Williams, you're back, sir.
Yeah, my internet for some reason it hiccuped, so I don't know what that was about. But I was saying my family's all together right now, and it's a blessing. So, but I'm gonna wrap up. This will be the last thing I say, and I'm gonna turn it back to Mr. Thomas.
He froze up again. Okay. All right. All right. When he comes back on, I'm gonna have to get him signed up to ACN internet, get him off that Amway internet. Miss Collins, you like that one? Yeah, he's got that Amway internet. I got, people in Houston, Texas, man. I tell you what, man, I gotta get him on ACN. I gotta hook him up, man. I gotta hook him up. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody tonight. Tomorrow night, do not miss it. This will be posted a little later on the channel. Mr. Bree Clemens got us on the channel on Destiny. So it'll be on the channel. It'll be on the channel a little later, so you can go back and listen to it. And if I could say something in closing, get your people on the call. Do something. Don't just come back by yourself. You know how much time and effort I put in to give you guys the best of the best calls, the best speakers. Bring other people on. Oh, here we go. All right, I think we got him back. Ms. Ismail, I'll wait for you to give me a thumbs up. But get people. Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you.
I had to switch to my phone. My computer was acting up, but
no, I'm gonna have to give you some ACN internet rather than Amway internet.
No. I ACN my life. Everything I got is ACN. Energy, home security, internet, cable. I'm even on Dish, so I'm on all of it. So no, I was just saying. I was looking at the screen and looking at everybody on the call, and I just wanted to really say to you guys, I mean, take advantage of what you have in Mr. Thomas. And this is not a PSA. This is real. I take advantage of him, and to see, I've known wealthy guys, and it's not there. And many of them are selfless, but they've learned that selflessness through their success and the things that have driven. In most cases, you'll reach a pinnacle of success as a result of selflessness. So the fact that you have access to this guy, the reason many people don't find the level of success that they could is because they never find the mentor in their lives that can get them there. And so Mr. Thomas is many of you, he is the pathway to the next level of success for you. And because believe you me, there are some very strategic things I'll be talking to him about in the next few weeks, because I see some changes on the horizon, and there are things he's already done and he's already prepared for. And so I'm going to be picking his brain. Why? Because this is how it was designed to be done. We grow and we move forward on stepping on each other. My son's job is that one guy says, make your ceiling your son's floor. And so that's what we do as mentors. So I'll be talking to him about some things I see, but other than that, I'm wrapping up. Any other questions or comments? Other than that, I'm done.
Well, sir, thank you so much. Everybody, let's show Mr. Williams some love for the night's training. We appreciate you. We got him back on Tuesday, the 18th. The 18th of August on Tuesday. He'll be back with us. Wow, we can't wait. Tomorrow night, everybody, don't forget, tomorrow night at 6:00 p.m. Pacific Coast time, Ms. Ismail will be doing our training on scripts on what to say when you're prospecting. So once again, let's give Mr. Dwight Williams a hand before he's, God bless you, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.